I don't think it could be understated really how many people died during these events. So you're up to 450,000 of the 800,000 civilians living in Vendée were killed. More than half. So the Great Terror comes along. We have law of 22 Aureliel. So trials were limited now to deciding only on liberty or death, with defendants having no rights. Were you an enemy of the people? And that the law here was so broadly written that almost anybody that the authorities wanted could fall within the definition of being an enemy of the people. So 1,500 were executed between June and July. Here, this was very appropriate. Robespierre himself, the last man living in France. Robespierre executing the last man in France, the executioner. Really just exemplifies how out of hand this was, and how Robes, really the drawing speaks for itself. The monster guillotine. The last guillotine execution in France was in 1977, if you can believe it. O thou charming guillotine, you shortened kings and queens, by your influence divine we have reconquered our rights. Come to aid of the country, and let your superb instrument become forever permanent to destroy the impious sect. Sharpen your razor for Pitt and his agents, fill your divine sack with heads of tyrants. 1977. Dechristianization efforts increased in France, the adoption of Republican calendar, for example. This remained unpopular, however, in rural France. The Catholic Church gets linked with real or potential counter-revolutionary activities. Religion was made to be associated with the ancient regime, Louis XVI, absolutism, all of that, and superstitious practices. This whole dechristianization effort was very popular among the sans-culottes, and they figured, therefore, religion had no place in a rational, secular republic, which they were trying to make. And this was the calendar. They renumbered the years, the months had different names, the days. So year 1, 1792 to 1793, all the way through year 14, 1805. Yeah. You can see, new name. The second one, Brumaire, meaning fog. That's from October 22nd to November 20th. Germinal, budding, March 21st to April 19th. The public exercise of religion becomes banned. The Paris Commune, meaning the government, if you need a reminder, the government of the city of Paris supported the destruction of religious and royal statues. They banned clerical dress. They encouraged the clergy to give up their vocations. Were they entirely successful in this? No, of course not. When you ban something, like in America, when we banned alcohol, what did that do? It just drives it underground. People do the thing that the government doesn't want them to do in secret. Right. So the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris, they turned that into the Temple of Reason. And, the cult of the Supreme Being. So the dechristianization efforts here alienated most of the population. most of the population did not like this, especially in the rural areas. And here we get a measure of justice for the terror that Robespierre spearheaded, and in July 1794, the National Convention reasserted its authority and executed Robespierre. The revolt against him was called the Thermidorian Reaction, which was July. So July was Thermidor in the new revolutionary calendar. I mean, I get why they did that, why they renamed the months, the days, all that, but it just, I don't know. I think if I was living in France at that time, I'd be very, very confused. They wanted really to start again, to do totally away with the old, bring in the new. So the bright idea to rename the months, start over with year one. Again, I think I'd be very confused, but evidently, something they wanted. We have the birth of the Directory. And these guys, were the head. So the government at this point consists of a bicameral legislature, 2 houses, and an executive body of 5 men called the Directory. We have I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm not even going to try pronouncing it. The Directory is dominated by rich bourgeoisie. These guys were corrupt, they were unpopular. The public discontent with the Directory mounted because they failed to deal with inflation. They failed to deal with the food shortages that were still ongoing in France. They failed to deal with the corruption that was happening. So in November the 9th, to be exact, 1799, Napoleon overthrows the Directory in a coup d'etat and seizes power for himself. Napoleon, if you perhaps remember from another history class, came from a family of just very, very minor nobility on the island of Corsica. And up until that point, he was in the army as a brigadier general. So now we come to the Napoleonic era. He's on the scene, officially. He was like an expert chess player with the human race for an opponent, which he proposed to checkmate, said Madame Germaine de Stael. Bonaparte, sketch of him by Jacques-Louis David. So Napoleon took command of a new government and made himself first consul. He held really all the power. And his popularity, he was very popular. He restored order to France, much needed, stimulated prosperity. He defeated the Second Coalition, the plebiscite, a vote, and the voters of France overwhelmingly endorsed his rule. And why wouldn't they? Brought stability. Was an able military commander who proved he could defeat France's enemies. He uses the democratic process to destroy French democracy. He used his power quite effectively. He makes France into an efficient modern nation, embodying the philosophe's concept of enlightened despotism, like with Catherine the Great in Russia. Again, very effective. He creates the Napoleonic Code, a law code that is still used today and still looked at today. Such work as mine is not done twice in a century. I have saved the revolution as it lay dying. I have cleansed it of its crimes and have held it up to the people, shining with fame. I have inspired France and Europe with new ideas that will never be forgotten, says Napoleon. Rather confident in himself. And as I just mentioned, he consults legal experts. His legal experts consolidate hundreds of laws into a uniform legal code, which remains the basis of French law, even today, the Napoleonic Code. And this law guarantees the achievements of the French Revolution. People have equality under the law. People have freedom of religion. You abolish privilege. There's no more official, for the moment anyway, nobility. There are property rights. I brought order out of chaos. I rewarded merit, talent, regardless of birth or wealth, wherever I found it. I abolished feudalism and restored equality to all, regardless of religion and before the law. I fought the decrepit monarchies because the alternative was the destruction of all this, all the reforms. I purified the revolution. The Napoleonic Code increased the authority of husbands over families, which was a major blow to women's rights. Women are nothing but machines for producing children. Napoleon's words, not mine. Just to be clear. Napoleon understood the importance of ending strained relationship between the French government and the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church was not going anywhere. Napoleon didn't think he was going anywhere. Might as well repair the relationship, which he did. Religion is excellent stuff, he says, for keeping common people quiet. Religion is what keeps the poor from murdering the rich. The Concordat of 1801 made the church the de facto religion, the church being the Catholic Church, the de facto religion of France again, and Napoleon earned the right to appoint the French clergy. The Pope and the Church were very eager to play nice with him. Skillful conquerors have not got entangled with priests. They can both contain them and use them. There's some wisdom there. 1806, the Imperial Catechism comes out, and this is what Catholic children were taught to think of Napoleon. What are the duties of Christians towards those who govern them? And what in particular are our duties toward Napoleon I, our emperor? That's the question. Answer. Christians owe to princes who govern them, and we in particular owe to Napoleon I, our emperor, love, respect, obedience, fidelity, military service, and the taxes levied for the preservation and defense of the empire and of his throne. We also owe him fervent prayers for his safety and for the spiritual and temporal prosperity of the state. He certainly forged a relationship. I'll say no more about it. Why are we subject to all these duties toward our emperor? Question. Answer. First, because God, who has created empires and distributes them according to his will, has, by loading our emperor with gifts both in peace and in war, established him as our leader and made him the representative of his power and his image upon earth. To honor and serve our emperor is therefore to honor and serve God himself. So there goes the ideas of the revolution. Really, there goes the ideas of the Enlightenment. Napoleon, as was said, used democracy to destroy democracy. This is the ancient regime. These are the ideas that the French fought to overthrow, that he brings back with the help, of course, of the Catholic Church. Question, what must we think of those who are wanting, meaning not fulfilling in their duties toward our emperor? Answer, according to the Apostle Paul, they are resisting the order established by God himself and render themselves worthy of eternal damnation. There he is. So Napoleon censors the press. Napoleon suppressed all political opposition. Power is my mistress, he says. I have worked too hard at her conquest to allow anyone to take her away from me. And he holds on. He holds on for quite some time. And the French liked it. The French allowed it. Maybe not liked it, but allowed it because Napoleon brought them security. Napoleon brought them stability. Napoleon brought them prosperity. which they were not enjoying for quite some time. France has more need of me than I have need of France, says Napoleon. I don't think that the peasants who now had bread, the people who had housing, everybody that was helped in the new regime, in other words, would argue with that sentiment. So Napoleon declared himself emperor, and the Pope is there. The Pope is right here. He invites the Pope because traditionally it is the Pope who puts the crown on the king or the emperor's head and declares it the will of God, and so forth and so on, that he be who he says he is. Napoleon grabs the crown, and this is really made into a huge deal. And it is a huge deal because it went against the established order of things, but that is what Napoleon does. He grabs the crown, puts it on his head, says, basically, I'm the emperor. That's it. The Pope, invited though he is, and who was supposed to do that, is relegated to a mere spectator. The nation was grateful that he's the emperor. And this is on December the 2nd, 1804. He crowns Josephine empress. Now, her divorce statement in 1807, and he didn't divorce her because he stopped loving her, because he didn't care. They remained great friends. In fact, he was heartbroken during his exile in Elba to learn that she had died. So it wasn't because of a breakdown in the relationship. It was, think back to Henry VIII. It was because she couldn't give him a son. Or, yeah, I think I'm right. Or any children, for that matter. And he needed an heir. So she says in 1807, with the permission of our august and dear husband, I must declare that having no hope of bearing children who would fulfill the needs of his policies and the interest of France, I am pleased to offer him the greatest proof of attachment and devotion ever offered on this earth, and leave him. Napoleon says, far from ever finding cause for complaint, I can, to the contrary, only congratulate myself on the devotion and tenderness of my beloved wife. She has adorned 13 years of my life. The memory will always remain engraved on my heart. And it really did. And we will come to Marie Louise of Austria in the next part of the saga that was the French Revolution.